What's up, everybody? Good Thursday afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well. And it is time to revive a series that I was doing a couple years ago on this channel. And I think I did it a little bit last year as well. Not 100% sure, but either way, it's time to bring it back. That's right, we're doing Who to Root For as a Seahawks fan this week in football. I wasn't going to do it this year because, quite frankly, I wasn't expecting the team to be in any kind of a playoff race. I wasn't expecting a playoff spot to potentially be on the line with some of these tertiary games. Of course, I was hoping for it, and I was hoping that the team could prove me wrong. But I didn't really expect other games, like other NFC games, or even occasionally like AFC, NFC games, to really play that big of a role in the Seahawks' fate. So I wasn't going to bring this series back this year because I thought things were going to be very binary for the Seahawks fans. You'd want Seattle to win, duh, because you're a fan of the team and winning is better than losing. You're rooting for the teams that you hate to lose, like mostly division rivals, I think. You want the Broncos to lose because of the draft pick. And other than that, whatever. Like, whatever happens, happens. So I really wasn't going to do this series this year, but the team is actually good now, so it's time to open the door again. It's time to get into this stuff because not only are we in the playoff race, we're currently in the playoffs. In fact, if the season ended today, I believe we would be the 3 seed. So we're deep in the playoffs, actually. We're dug into that playoff picture. So our playoff positioning, our chances of making the playoffs in general, it's going to be influenced by which teams do what in these other games that don't really have anything to do with the Seahawks directly. Almost every game that gets played in the NFL matters now. So I'm bringing the series back. Obviously, there are going to be games every week where the desired outcome is obvious. If the Seahawks are playing, we want the Seahawks to win. I can't imagine any scenario where we wouldn't. There is still the Broncos pick on the board, so we want the Broncos to lose. But beyond that, you're also talking about things like divisional rivals losing. That's pretty obvious. But there are going to be other teams in the NFC that you're also looking to lose from week to week. And sometimes you're going to have to make a difficult decision between two teams that may get involved in the playoff race, and you just have to try to make a read on which team is more of a threat later. So we've got a game tonight in a couple hours, Thursday Night Football tonight. I'm going to be watching it. It does bear some relevance to the Seahawks playoff chances. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's bring back who to root for in week number 10 as a Seahawks fan. So tonight, in about 2 hours, we got the Falcons at the Panthers. Pretty obvious here. The Falcons are in the playoff race. They're tied for their division lead. The only reason why they don't have their division lead outright is because of the garbage roughing the passer call on them when they played the Bucs head-to-head. That's obviously not a very good division. It's unlikely they produce a wild card, I'll say that. Like, you're looking at the Falcons and the Bucs. Whichever of those teams comes out ahead in the horse race is going to win the division, and the other team is probably not going to be good enough to sneak a wild card spot. But it's not impossible, and you might end up in some sort of a tie with a team like the Falcons for a seeding if you both win the division. And let's remember, the Falcons own the tiebreaker because they beat us head-to-head. So we're definitely rooting for the Panthers, not only because of all that, everything I just said. The Falcons may make the playoffs. They got a good chance to win their division. They have a slim chance at a wild card, but it's existent. Panthers are a team that is competing for a top draft pick. So if you beat if they win, it moves them down the draft board and pushes up that Broncos pick potentially. And remember, the Panthers and the Broncos play head-to-head pretty soon here. That game could end up meaning a lot in the draft race. All right, so that takes us to Sunday. I don't need to tell you guys why we're rooting for Seattle to win because, yeah, you guys know. You guys are smart people. After that very early game, the 6:30 Germany game, we've got the Vikings at the Bills. Hopefully Josh Allen plays, but regardless of who does play, we are rooting for the Bills very much. Very obvious reasons why. The Vikings are pretty much guaranteed to win their division right now because the NFC North, besides the Vikings, is atrocious. So there may come a circumstance, it is possible, that Seattle and Minnesota have the very similar records and both win their division. So tiebreakers may end up coming into play here, but we need them to come down a couple notches because right now they're 7-1. So they're running away with it. Got to bring them down a little bit. Playing in Buffalo is a great chance to do so. Lions and Bears, I don't know if this one matters very much. I know neither team's going to make the playoffs, right? Like, neither team's very good. The Bears are a little frisky because Justin Fields has been playing so well. But I feel like if you had to root for anybody in this game, you would probably just root for the Lions. They are more of a threat to pick at the top of the draft because they are a worse team and they've had a worse start to the season. So I would say, yeah, root for the Lions. We need them to bank a few wins, see if they can end up with a better record than the Broncos, and hopefully the Broncos pick ends up getting pushed a little bit higher. The Lions are a very flawed team, so they're going to struggle to win. The Bears, on the other hand, have a few more things going for them this year, so they're more likely to sneak a win here or there down the line. So it's more likely their draft pick ends up somewhere near the middle. So, yeah, root for the Lions, I think. Broncos at Titans, obviously, if you're just talking about the best interest of the team, rooting for the Titans. And this is actually a pivotal game here for the Broncos. If they win this game, they're looking at a 4-game winning streak right in the face. Because after this, they've got the Raiders with 8 million injuries, and they've got the Panthers. And the Panthers were fun for a couple weeks, but it looks like they've come back down to earth with P.J. Walker. So if the Broncos win this game, suddenly they're going to fight their way back into it. Probably not the playoff race, but at least they're not going to be atrocious the way it looked like they were going to be. So yeah, Titans, pretty obvious. Jaguars and Chiefs. A lot of Seahawks fans root against the Chiefs in general because they hate them. I don't. I personally don't go for that. I like this Chiefs team. Andy Reid is one of my favorite people in football. But we are going to be rooting for Jacksonville for draft pick reasons. Remember, Jacksonville is very likely to be one of those 4 or 5 win teams. So if Denver ends up being one of those 4 or 5 win teams, obviously the head-to-head matchup doesn't matter in that circumstance because it's draft picks. It's not playoff seeding. But regardless, we want teams like Jacksonville to bank a couple wins. Now, of course, I'm not expecting it this week, but in terms of who we actually have an interest in, yeah, we want Jacksonville to win. Browns at Dolphins, kind of the same thing here. Now, I think the Browns have so many good things on that team, they're going to find a way to win a few games this year regardless. Like, they've got maybe the best running back in the league this year, Nick Chubb. He's averaging like 5.5 yards per carry. They're going to get Deshaun Watson back, and he'll probably help them a little bit. They have some good things going on over there in Cleveland. They really do. It's just they've kind of run afoul of some bad luck this year, like that ridiculous Jets game. So I think the Browns are likely to win somewhere around 7 games this year. But yeah, we're definitely going to take this opportunity to hope they can bank a win against this pretty good Dolphins team that has nothing to do with us because they're probably going to make the playoffs over there in the AFC. All is well. Okay, also 10 a.m. we have the Texans and the Giants, very self-explanatory here. The Giants are a team that we may end up in a wild card race with, and we beat them head-to-head, which helps, but we need them to be on our level for that to matter. So rooting for the Texans. Texans right now, I believe, are also in line to get the number 1 pick, so if they could win some games here, maybe push that Broncos pick up a little bit at some point, that would be wonderful. Saints and Steelers, 2 pretty bad teams so far this year. The Saints are an NFC team, and I think they're a little more likely to get their stuff together by the end of the year because they're going to get Winston back. They're going to get some players back on offense at least. I think they're going to get... they've got a long list of assorted injuries on that team right now. I know like Michael Thomas is probably not going to come back this year, but they're going to get some guys back. By the end of the year, they're probably going to be like a 6 or 7 win team at the least. So the Steelers, they're a team that really could lose out. They're bad. And I think for that reason, you want them to try to find their way to a win here or there. This is a good opportunity for them to maybe do so. They're playing at home. The Saints, like I said, they're not good right now. They've got injuries right now. I think they're still playing Andy Dalton. So, yeah, rooting for the Steelers. And then we get to the 1 o'clock slate. We have the Colts and the Raiders. Yeah, this Raiders team, with all the injuries that they now have, plus their generally bad play, is a real threat to just lose out. So this is a good opportunity for them to stave that off. They're playing a Colts team. Jeff Saturday's first game as a coach. Sam Ehlinger, I believe, is still starting at quarterback for them, so that's going to be a disaster in all likelihood. This is a good opportunity for them to find a way to a win. They are heavily favored right now. Well, 5 points. Relatively heavily favored for a terrible team. So if the Raiders could get this win, maybe build up some momentum for that Broncos game, I believe, in a week, that would be great. So yeah, definitely rooting for the Raiders there. Cowboys and Packers, pretty self-explanatory as well. Most of these games are going to be, by the way. The Packers look like a non-threat. The Cowboys look like a team that is likely going to end up with a wild card spot. So you're rooting for the Packers to knock them down just in case we end up competing with them. Plus, if this keeps up, the Packers are going to be a real threat for a top draft pick, which gets in the way of Denver's pick. So sure, let's try to get these Packers a win. I think they're on a 4-game losing streak. So if there's any hint of competitiveness in that team, it should come out. Cardinals-Rams, divisional game between two teams that we don't like very much. This one's tough, right? It feels like the Cardinals are just cooked. It feels like they're just done. Like we don't have to worry about them. Are the Rams done? It feels like it, but then they're only 3-5, and you know they're going to get a couple pieces back. So are we rooting for the Cardinals? I kind of think we are, because even if they find a way to win this game by hook or by crook, I just don't think that team is going to become a threat later. And the Rams could be. And also, if the Cardinals do get back into the race somehow, we own the tiebreaker because we beat them twice. So being tied with them at the end of the season, if we're competing for a playoff spot, that's totally fine. Okay, now we have a Sunday night football. We got the Chargers and the Niners. Very obvious what we want to happen here. If the Chargers find a way to upset the Niners and win this game, and we take care of business against Tampa, we will have built such a big lead in the division over them that all we would probably have to do to secure the division would be to just beat the Niners at home when we play them later this year. It would probably just come down to that. Like the remaining games we have that should be relatively easy wins are enough to where if the Niners lose, we win this weekend, which definitely possible. I know it's unlikely, but certainly possible. Then we're right there. So the other side note to make here is that the Niners' remaining schedule is not harsh. They should be able to pile up some wins. So if we could get them to slip up and lose to a team like the Chargers, who are good but injured, that would be much preferred. And also, don't forget, they are capable of losing any game they play because of Jimmy Garoppolo. So don't count them. It's the opposite of don't count them out. Don't count them in, right? And then ESPN, we got the Commanders and we got the Eagles. I don't know, right? Okay, so the Eagles are undefeated. In theory, you want them to be brought down a couple pegs so you can catch them. But it might be too many pegs, right? The Eagles are 8-0. They've got a super easy schedule. You're not going to catch the Eagles unless somebody gets hurt or several somebodies get hurt. All right? Maybe you'd rather have the Eagles win so the Commanders can be pushed out of the playoff race a little bit, because there's an outside chance, not a big chance, but an outside chance the Commanders end up competing for a wild card. They're 4-5. They're not bad. They've been playing competitive football this year. They're doing all right. I don't think they're going to get involved in the playoff chase, but it's on the table. So I think we're actually rooting for the Eagles. The Commanders are not a threat for a top pick at the moment because they've already won 4 games, so I'm not too worried about that angle. I am, however, thinking about the fact that the Commanders have an outside chance of worming their way back into the playoff race if they win this game and go to 5-5. So I would probably rather just prevent that. We're not catching the Eagles. Even if we win out, the Eagles might finish ahead of us because their schedule is so soft. Okay, that's all I see this week. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you disagree or if I'm overlooking some element of this. See you guys later. Go Hawks.